Cloverleaf Radio.
The moon belongs to everyone. The best things in life are free. The stars belong to everyone. They gleam there for you and me. The flowers in spring, the robins that sing, the sunbeams that shine, they're yours, they're mine, and love can come to everyone. The best things in life are free.
Hi, this is Gary Redenbacher, grandson of Orville Redenbacher. Join me and my cousin Ian as we reminisce about my grandpa and the popcorn.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Cloverleaf Radio. My guest today is the grandson of the late popcorn icon Orville Redenbacher. He is now a lawyer in California, and he is Gary Redenbacher.
Hi, Ian. Nice to be here. We're back in Indiana, Brazil. Is that right?
Well, I am in central Illinois, but I am in Indiana a lot, and as a board member of the Popcorn Festival of Clay County. I'm actually the only relative of Orville to be on that board as of right now, but that's pretty much what I'm up to these days.
Great. I understand that now and then my cousins, my aunt, show up out there. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, your aunt is actually, this year we are, as we were a couple of years ago, going to be featured on the Food Network, and they're coming out to interview my aunt, or your aunt, and me on the Food Network, so that should be really interesting. So she's going to be there, and I'm not quite positive. I've heard some of the other relatives are going to be there, but I'm not quite positive about that.
Fantastic. It's nice to hear that they're still involved in the popcorn.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk a little bit briefly about what was your start doing the popcorn commercials.
Well, the start, it depends on who you were talking to. Talk to Grandpa, he said he had nothing to do with bringing me on. But if you talk to the advertising people and the marketing people, they say that Grandpa suggested me because I had worked out in the field originally and I knew a lot about popcorn.
So it's kind of a two-sided discussion.
My guess is that Grandpa was looking to not ruffle anything, feathers, or hurt anybody's feelings. So he told the family that it wasn't his decision, whereas the marketing guys were forthcoming.
So what did you enjoy about getting to work with your grandfather on the commercials?
Well, Grandpa himself was a lot of fun. He had a great dry humor, and really enjoyed having him around. He was exactly what you expected from what you saw in the commercials. He's very much what you saw is what you got. And of course, anytime you do something like television commercials involved in mass media, you're afforded opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise get. So I'm very grateful for all the different things I got to see and do with Grandpa.
Yeah, I've seen, as a lot of other people have, seen the large volume of commercials you guys did. What did your grandpa think about getting to be involved in the marketing of his product?
You know, he never really expected to go any further than just driving around the Midwest in his station wagon, popping samples up for people. What he did is one day he went to Chicago, and his famous line was that he went there to ask what should he call the popcorn. This time he wanted to call it Red Bow, which was red for Redenbacher and Bow for Bowman, who was Charlie Bowman, his partner. Well, he went to this advertising agency in Chicago, and they looked at him and said, I think you should name it Orville Redenbacher. And he always liked to complain that that was the same name that his mother thought of 60 years earlier, but she didn't charge him $12,000.
Yeah, I read an article from about 1990 where he was talking about going to Chicago to the agency and being charged the money to pretty much use his own name for the product.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing about Grandpa is that story, the amount that he got charged goes up every time he told the story. Well, it went up like every year. As I recall, originally he told me it was $8,000, and then a year or two later he told me it was $9,000. It kept on going until I think it got as high as $12,000.
Oh, wow.
It's still a good story.
Yeah, it does. It really does have kind of an old school kind of look at things.
Yeah, very much so. And Grandpa was old school in a lot of ways. But you know what? He was very much up with the time. He was always looking for the latest and best ways to harvest the corn, to grow it, to make it ever better. In some ways he was old-fashioned, but in a lot of ways he was very much cutting edge.
Now, I know he told people that you guys, part of your slogans was every kernel pops, and occasionally there would be a few that didn't, and people would send them to him taped on postcards. Did he get kind of a kick out of that?
He did, and I remember he used to mail them back something. It was a wise guy response. Oh, that's right. He would take a kernel of corn and pop it, and he would mail them back a kernel of corn that had popped. That's just part of his humor.
Yeah, it sounds like he had a really good, interesting sense of humor, even though I never got to meet him. I have heard a lot of stories from family.
Yeah, he always had some sort of quick crack to make, or some comment. There was one famous commercial, at least famous amongst the marketing group, that we made years ago. What they did is they just had us talking, Grandpa and I talking, say on a bench or in some situation, and they'd just throw a topic out at us, and they wanted us to talk on it. And generally, I was the straight guy, and Grandpa would tell the joke, whatever came to his mind. And one time, he was looking at these kernels in his hand and going off on what a male kernel was and a female kernel was. Actually, not quite that, but how you tell between a male plant and a female plant. So I thought I'd needle him a little bit, and I said, come on, Grandpa, how can you tell whether these kernels are male or female without missing a beat? This is all, filmed. He says, you just turn them over and look. We thought it was great. They did a full-up production on the commercial, but they refused to play it nationally. They said it was just too risque. So we thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, I know there is one from the late '80s where you guys actually sat down and he was talking about how he made sure every kernel of corn popped. I don't know if that had anything to do with a certain one you're talking about, but it was just kind of a sit-down discussion with you guys.
Yeah, Grandpa and I together made about 80 commercials, and Grandpa made another maybe 30 to 40 by himself. So it's hard to say which commercial you're talking about, because we often tried to do the same message over and over. Very high quality, light and fluffy, almost every kernel pops, stuff like that.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. So when was the last time you guys actually did a commercial together?
That would have been just before his death in 1995. We actually did, as I recall, a full-up production of about 3. But then when he died, out of deference to him, we pulled them and didn't play them. Essentially, stopped playing anything with Grandpa for almost 10 years. And then here about 2 years ago, the new marketing guys came on and decided that they wanted to reintroduce Grandpa as pitchman. So they're using our archival footage to bring him back.
Yeah, and I know actually before they put the archival footage, they had the very risque digital version of your grandfather in 2007. And so far, you're the only person that I've heard that actually, well, besides me, that actually supported the actual commercial.
Well, we supported it in the sense of Grandpa liked cutting-edge things, and he loved to do new things. But I will admit that the commercial, as it turned out, was a bit difficult public consumption. That's putting it gently. You know, I read many accounts where it said it looked like he's a zombie, and it is a little bit macabre, I suppose, trying to recreate a guy and have him come back up. You know, it's not like Colonel Sanders where they used a cartoon caricature to do it. This was an attempt to recreate Grandpa as he looked exactly, but unfortunately the look didn't quite work out.
Yeah, I've heard Redenbacher and just a lot of people having kind of a heyday with making fun of this digital version. It was a really too much updated version. I think,
you know, I gotta say though, Ian,